Can you speak about a time watching or making movies where film was a transformative force or change agent in your life?
Film has always been a kind of a transformative a thing for me. I have dyslexia, and so film was always a thing that visuals was always a thing that I kind of looked to. I grew up in Jamaica. The first films I saw were films from Hong Kong, because that's in the 70s and late 70s. That's where the films would flood from Hong Kong to the third world. So the first films I see were films starring Bruce Lee and people like that. And then I came to Canada. I saw a lot of NFB documentaries in school. I think we all did. And then from the NFB documentaries, in my late teens, I discovered Francois Truffaut and the French New Wave and films from Europe. All the repertory cinemas that are in town here in Toronto. My film experience went from watching films from Hong Kong to, discrete charms of the bourgeoisie.
Can you pull out a moment for us when you were making either a film or now in television where you felt like this was a key moment that you remember as a filmmaker, as a director, as a writer?
I mean, as an artist, you're always trying to make sense of the world and your place in it. And I think what's so amazing about films is that you can see a story and it relates to your own personal experience. So you watch a film from, say, Russia, for instance, and you're a kid growing up in Regent Park in Toronto, and something about the universality of that story, about a coming-of-age story. I mean, a film like, say, the 400 Blows by Francois Truffaut, about a young kid growing up in Paris, post-World War II. That film resonated with me as a kid growing up in Toronto. So sometimes you make a film and you don't really know what it means until years later, or you do a scene in a television show and you want certain personal elements in it and you don't know why you want it in it. After a while you sort of realize, oh, this is why I wanted to do that. So it's always a kind of personal conversation with moving images.
If you were to assign must-haves, what would you encourage people to read or watch as essential to movie, image culture, to film?
Hitchcock is the first filmmaker, I think, if you love films, that's, as a kind of way in, because he makes what I call pure cinema, where you could watch Hitchcock films with the sound off and know what's going on. Because he started in the silent era and sort of worked his way through a period of sound from black and white into color film. Every time I start a film, I always look at The Seven Samurai by Kurosawa, because it's just it's just pure cinema.
As a leader in Canada's film industry, what is the Canada you want? And what role do the arts play in your vision?
The Canada I want is the Canada I see when I take the subway every day. A culture that is diverse, a culture that is still growing and discovering itself. I mean, what's interesting and what's great about a country like Canada is that no one has any claims to it. It's still a young country, and we're still kind of discovering ourselves. It's not like France or Germany, where you can say, well, I'm a German, or I'm French, or if you're from Japan or something, I'm Japanese. In Canada, the idea and the identity of what is to be Canadian is still evolving. It's a cultural experiment that is working. I see it changing every day. From the time I came here as a kid to now, 40 years later, it has become much more diverse. It's become much more inclusive, and not that we're at the end, but it's the place where you feel like you could arrive and you could be part of help changing and defining what it is to be Canadian.
Have you taken away any lessons from your working on The Wire, American Crime? How do you apply those lessons from film to long form, to television?
I mean, moving images are, whether it's in television or in film, are the same. You have two elements that you're working with. You're working with images and you're working with sound, and you're trying to figure out how do I communicate within that. And for me, I'm always trying to figure out how do I get back to a more pure cinema? How do I communicate to you in a kind of emotional, economical, psychological, spiritual way? That the same way I felt when I saw Vertigo, for instance, or or recently when I saw a film called Son of Saul. How do I communicate those feelings back to you? So whether it's film or television, it's all the same. It's all about communication and affecting people's emotionally. And film is powerful. You could a good film could really change the conversation. I mean, Michael Moore proves that with films like Roger and Me. You could really affect the culture through a great film.